You have found the ideal spot if you are an admirer of the Bonanza series. For 14 incredible seasons, the legendary Bonanza ruled the wilds of vintage television. However, Bonanza had its fair share of challenges, much like a lone rider navigating the Wild West's unexpected twists and turns. The shocking resignation of Dan Blocker, the powerful actor who played the beloved role of Eric Haas Cartwright, caught everyone off guard. Dan Blocker's last Bonanza episode was too painful to watch since it dealt with one of the most emotionally charged scenes in this epic story. In this biography, we will follow Dan Blocker as he rises from modest beginnings to become the beating heart of Bonanza. Bobby Dan Davis Blocker set a new record for biggest baby born in Bowie County on December 10, 1998, in DeKalb, Texas. He weighed 14 pounds when he was born. It was unexpected that this little one would portray the legendary Hoss Cartwright. But Dan Blocker endured a lot of challenges as a kid. With the support of his parents, Ora Shack and Mary Arizona Blocker, a young Dan helped run a grocery store in O'Donnell, Texas, after enduring the hardships of the Great Depression. Despite his father's joking about paying people to recruit Dan due to his size, Blocker's towering stature of 6 feet 4 inches and more than 300 pounds ended up being an asset down the road. In the end, Dan earned a football scholarship at Sul Ross State University after enrolling in the Texas Military Institute when he was 13 years old. He was able to attend college at the age of 18 because to his height and athleticism, but his career took a surprising turn when he discovered his love for acting in a collegiate production of Arsenic and Old Lace. After falling head over heels for the energy and response of a live performance, Dan decided to switch his major from English to theater. His graduation marked a dramatic change. Dan Blocker turned down opportunities to play professional football so that he could focus on his acting career. After getting a little part in a Broadway production of King Lear, he went on to play in summer stock and repertory theatrical productions. He had to answer a duty call from the Army, thus his enjoyment of acting had to be short-lived. But Dan did an outstanding job serving in Korea, receiving many awards including the Purple Heart. Married his college sweetheart Dolphia Parker after being released in 1952 with the rank of sergeant, he went back to school to get a master's degree in dramatic arts. It would seem that he was unstoppable once he decided to act. To help support his family, Dan taught 6th grade in New Mexico before taking a position teaching high school English and drama in Sonora, Texas. You would be completely mistaken, however, to assume that this concludes his life narrative. Even at your most irrational moments, destiny has the power to grant your deepest desires. Dan, whose fate seemed to be leading him westward, ended himself in California, where he was able to combine teaching with his pursuit of a doctorate in dramatic arts. Dan began trying out for jobs on television in his mid-50s as a means of support. What a tragic fate for an actor of his caliber. He rediscovers his passion for acting and showcases his humorous skills in minor roles in classic westerns such as Gunsmoke, The Rifleman, Have Gun Will Travel, and Maverick. Even though his recurrent part on Cimarron City ended when the program was canceled in 1948, it set him up for the role that would define his career, Hoss Cartwright on Bonanza. From 1949 until 1973, NBC broadcast the acclaimed American series Bonanza, which ran for 14 seasons and 440 episodes, making it the second longest-running Western behind the famous Gunsmoke. The program chronicled the adventures of the ranching Cartwrights, a made-up family living in the Virginia City, Nevada area in the 1980s. A true mining boomtown this city was. Lorne Greene played Ben Cartwright, a patriarch who had 3 kids from separate marriages and had been widowed 3 times. While the show's early seasons focused on the brothers' contrasting personalities and the resulting conflict, later seasons explored the intricacies of the family's enormous estate, the Ponderosa, and the challenges of mining and ranch management there. In the face of both internal strife and outside dangers, the Cartwrights rose to the position of guardians of their homeland and defenders of justice. The show's popularity persisted even after Roberts departed in 1965, a testament to the story's resilience. One season after Dan Blocker's untimely death in 1972, Bonanza was canceled, casting a shadow over the show. The Cartwrights were firmly rooted as Ponderosa landowners and integral members of the community in Bonanza, setting it apart from traditional westerns that featured gunslingers roaming the prairie. The show also prioritized diplomacy and dialogue over shootouts when resolving disputes, which drew in a diverse audience. 3 films featuring the descendants of the original cast members continued the Bonanza tradition long after the show had ended. The Next Generation, The Return, and Under Attack were the well-known Bonanza films. Furthermore, fans were transported back in time to the days of the legendary ranch's foundation in the prequel series Ponderosa. That brings back a flood of memories. It seems to me that not many performers got their big break until David Dortort hired Dan as Hoss Cartwright on Bonanza, but Dan was one of them. Because the job was so time-consuming and demanding, Dan had to put his PhD studies on hold so he could devote himself totally to acting. Hoss was the show's lifeblood, if Little Joe was its leading man, presented the character of Ben Cartwright, a prosperous rancher in Nevada, as the middle son. Hoss was infamous for his clumsiness, timidity, and tendency to be fooled by pranks. Nevertheless, Hoss became a fan favorite because to Dan Blocker's portrayal of a kind and loving character, who struck a chord with viewers of all ages. Inspired by a remark from Stephen Grellet, a Quaker missionary from the 18th century, Dan played Hoss with a dedication to love and good deeds. Quoted as saying, "We shall pass this way on earth but once. If there is any kindness we can show or good act we can do, let us do it now, for we will never pass this way again." The ethos that shaped Dan's interpretation of the beloved character was captured in that phrase. During his time on Bonanza, Dan became close friends with co-stars Lorne Greene and Michael Landon. These connections went beyond the set and into the real world, as the TV family spent many hours together both on and off set. The strong relationships that Dan and Michael Landon had were further shown when he was best man at Michael's wedding to Lynn No. Come Blow Your Horn and Lady in Cement, both starring Frank Sinatra, were among the few films in which Dan appeared despite Bonanza's heavy production schedule. The little hamlet of O'Donnell, Texas, kept celebrating the success of their adoptive son Dan, even after he relocated his parents to California. Back in O'Donnell, Dan Blocker's friends and neighbors were filled with pride and excitement as he went from being a bookish youngster to the horse-riding Hoss who gallops into living rooms every Sunday night. Exploration, conflict, and the ever-present waltz between good guys and bad guys were all part of Bonanza's plot, which took place throughout the expansive Western television landscape. Dan Blocker's Hoss Cartwright was a towering presence, both physically and symbolically, among the show's steadfast moral and family guiding lights. Picture this. It's 1972. Bonanza is in its 13th season, firmly established in the cultural realm of classic television. And Dan Blocker's Hoss is gradually becoming a beloved figure with a golden heart. Many people not only admired but also felt a strong connection to Hoss because of his powerful presence and his real warmth, which went beyond what was shown on television. Hoss was charming because Blocker gave him a rare combination of physical strength and kindness. With his trademark cowboy machismo, Hoss could handle any fight, but he was also very compassionate and understanding. A guy with a heart as soft as a poet might also wear the rough boots of a cowboy. With Blocker's breathing life into the character, Hoss became more than just a stereotypical white guy in a Western. The contrast between his imposing stature and his amiable personality gave the character depth that transcended the genre's cliches. An unexpected turn in the story occurred when Dan Blocker suddenly left the program and, sadly, the world. This emptiness was difficult for the show and its enormous fan base to accept. The 13th season finale, One Ace Too Many, was the last time viewers saw Blocker play Hoss, and it was a fitting farewell to an era. After that, where was Dan Blocker? Unexpected complications arose behind the scenes when Dan Blocker, like the rest of the cast and crew, went through what seemed like ordinary gallbladder surgery. It was supposed to be a short break from production pressures, but destiny had other ideas. After surgery, Blocker's complications took a tragic turn when he developed many blood clots in his lungs. This led to a deadly pulmonary embolism and his tragic death. It was completely unexpected for such a thing to happen. Blood clots developing unexpectedly during the treatment demonstrated the precariousness of life behind the scenes and the unpredictability of medical interventions, despite the procedure's seeming routineness. Tragic undertones now permeated the tales of camaraderie and bravery spun around the Cartwright family. Everyone found it difficult. Fans of Bonanza were forced to cope with the loss of a cherished character whose presence had brought them unending solace and happiness when Blocker signed off as Hoss. Looking back, the last bow for Dan Blocker as Hoss Cartwright is a touching illustration of how a character can move the story forward and touch the emotions of viewers. After hearing about such a sudden demise, you could ask how people managed. Fans were stunned and shocked to hear of Dan Blocker's death, which rocked the entertainment industry. Blocker was like a family member to the actors and crew that worked with him every day. Everyone working on Bonanza considered it more than just a program. The cast and crew have grown closer to one another since 1949, and that trend continued on site. Both the Cartwright family on screen and those working behind the scenes felt the impact of Blocker's departure, since he was the dynamic hub of their tight-knit group. Amidst the devastating loss, Bonanza's production crew, responsible for the hidden obstacles behind each episode, had to brave perilous seas. The production team had a tough time keeping the program running following Blocker's death because the strain was too much. Character interaction, more than the breathtaking scenery, was what made the Ponderosa Ranch come to life. The production team had to fill Blocker's shoes once he departed. Every member of the crew, from authors to set designers, was involved in this enormous project, which made their work very challenging. Rewriting the screenplay and coming up with new plot arcs were topics of conversation behind the scenes. From expanding the cast to honing in on current members, every choice has to be deliberate. Executive producer and program creator David Dortort had a lot of choices. Rather of hastily inserting a stand-in or providing an elaborate justification for Hoss's absence, the production fearlessly tackled the problem directly. Based on their investigation, this seemed to be their only option for resolving the issue at hand. The show's creators never directly addressed Blocker's death, but instead let the void he left behind to fill the plot in an organic manner, providing an opportunity for characters and viewers alike to grieve, adapt, and move on. While Blocker's loss was felt even behind the scenes, the production staff worked relentlessly to respect his memory while keeping the spirit of the show alive. They made sure that his legacy continues to influence the program. The program, however, was never the same after it. While adapting the screenplays, the authors explored previously unexplored emotional depths within their relationships. Michael Landon's Little Joe and Lorne Greene's Ben Cartwright were among the characters whose contemplative sides were addressed in the episodes. The play gained a new, although gloomy, depth with this change, which was tragically necessary. Rescheduled scenes, rescheduled timings, and rethought story issues were all made necessary by Blocker's substantial narrative and screen time. By adjusting their plans at the last minute to account for the new circumstances, the crew showed remarkable flexibility. Additionally, there was a shift in the strategic value of guest appearances. The addition of actors like David Canary and Tim Matheson was not done to oust Hoss, but rather to give the play fresh perspectives and depth. Their input was vital in guiding the episodes that followed Blocker, as they introduced new characters and story twists that kept viewers interested. Although the concert continued for a little while, the efforts were noticeable at that point. One of the most endearing and multifaceted legendary Western characters is Dan Blocker's Eric Hoss Cartwright. Hoss made an indelible impression on the hearts and minds of Bonanza viewers. He was more than simply a regular character in the hit TV series. What was it about Hoss, however, that struck a chord and made him more than a character? He became a dear friend to many people. The complex depiction by Dan Blocker brought to life a guy whose power came not from his bones but from his soul, offering an inspiring alternative to stereotypical ideas of manhood and strength. Hoss was more than just a cowboy. He personified the kind of youthful wonder and naivete that are unusual in mature characters, and they helped viewers to see Ponderosa with a light-hearted and carefree perspective. Hoss provided a moral compass amid the somewhat murky Wild West environment due to his sincere interest in human nature and his innate ability to see the best in people, even when Bonanza dealt with complicated themes. The bonds he had with his brothers, Adam and Little Joe in particular, helped him develop a more well-rounded personality by blending Joe's impetuous nature with Adam's intelligence. The fact that Hoss felt an overwhelming need to protect Little Joe showed how deeply he cared for his brother and how much family meant to him. The fact that Hoss was human, struggling with fears, questioning judgments, and experiencing human struggles made him very accessible, and fans loved him for it. Viewers identified strongly with the Cartwright family because Hoss reflected their own vulnerabilities and anxieties. The show's somber issues could have used some light relief, and Hoss's sense of humor more than delivered. Even at the worst of circumstances, there's always an opportunity to chuckle, thanks to his infectious laughter and clumsy pranks. It is impossible to exaggerate Dan Blocker's sincerity as Hoss. He dissolved the distinction between actor and role by fully immersing himself in the part of Hoss. Therefore, it's safe to say that viewers appreciate Eric Hoss because he was one of those people that they could relate to. A lot of people got extra attention when Eric Hoss died. Michael Landon was no exception. As the program dealt with the fallout of Dan Blocker's premature departure, he, as Joe Cartwright, started on a personal journey while coping with loss and adjusting to story changes. The connection they had on television was a reflection of their real-life friendship, respect, and laughing. Dealing with the death of a friend and the weight of duty to preserve the series' history were two sides of the same coin, as navigating the program through story revisions. After Blocker left, Landon had the difficult task of readjusting the dynamics within the Cartwright family. After the death of Joe Cartwright's older brother Hoss, the figure Joe had grown close to, played by Landon, had to change, marking a turning point in Joe's story and the actor's career. Because of his extensive involvement in the show's directing and writing, Landon had to wear several hats, which increased the pressure to make tough judgments about the show's direction, storyline, and character development, while keeping it loyal to its core. But this didn't dampen Landon's determination. He connected the past and present with his steadfast commitment to his profession and Bonanza. By immersing himself in his two roles, both on and off camera, he made sure that Joe Cartwright's character development seemed natural and genuine. While the plots evolved, the show's defining principles, the Cartwright family's values remained same. At this point in Bonanza, Landon's ability to switch gears between acting and the painstaking needs of production was on full display. The program was able to persevere through tragedy and story changes because of Landon's zeal and commitment, which served as its linchpin. Not only did Landon lose a great friend and confidant in Blocker and Hoss, but the two also had many off-camera moments of laughter, profound discussions, and mutual respect. It was a huge task to rebalance Joe's character without Hoss, who was renowned for his fiery temperament and unfaltering devotion and who often depended on Joe for grounding and advice. Landon played an essential part behind the scenes in keeping the staff and actors motivated. As the show's guiding light, he used his position to keep everyone focused on the series' ultimate goal whenever there was a glimmer of uncertainty. Yet, there were certain to be comparisons, reminiscences, and the ever-present specter of the past. Regardless, Landon overcame this obstacle as a friend and a creative force by remaining committed to the series, honoring Blocker's legacy, and having a true passion for writing. Bonanza survived. As real and moving as the program itself, the Bonanza cast and crew overcame the immense difficulty of bidding farewell in the unexpected realm where fact and fiction intertwined. No one ever gets over the pain of losing a cherished character or a beloved series, but the Bonanza family felt like they were saying goodbye to a member of their own family when the series ended. Ben Cartwright's patriarch, Lorne Greene, was first speechless. He took great pride in being the guiding light for his on-screen kids and the whole ensemble cast over the years, and the finale of Bonanza hit close to home for him. To help him get through tough shooting days and emotional times of camaraderie, Greene reflected on innumerable experiences in his honest interviews. Reminiscing and thankfulness were the emotions conveyed by Michael Landon, who portrayed the fervent Joe Cartwright. Introspective and emotionally complex, Landon has discussed his development as a performer and a person during his tenure on Bonanza. The series was more than just a profession, it was an opportunity for personal growth in his view. The workers behind the scenes felt the same way. Everyone involved in making Bonanza a reality, from directors to writers to technicians and support staff, had given their all, enduring treacherous terrains, wildly fluctuating weather, and the incessant pressures of prime-time television. Not only was the show's runtime up, but so were the years of hard effort and collaboration that went into it. Everyone on set understood that Bonanza was only a chapter, even if it was a big one. After the Ponderosa Ranch series ended, many of the characters moved on to other adventures, taking with them the friendships, knowledge, and experiences they had gained. A tribute to the show's effect and the deep-seated relationship it had established with its fans, letters poured in, remembering favorite episodes and treasured moments and expressing thanks for years of amusement. The unwavering affection and support of individuals who had touched the Bonanza family's life provided comfort during their time of sorrow. Dan Blocker went beyond being just an actor to become an icon, and his impact is seen on both television and popular culture. Eric Hoss Cartwright, the genial behemoth of Bonanza, was a name that went well beyond the small screen. It was evident from his debut on Bonanza that Blocker wasn't going to be any ordinary actor. His performance as Hoss was so genuine, he gave the role the kind of approachability that made the audience feel like they were seeing an old friend. In a time when rough westerns were the norm, Hoss came to represent simplicity, honesty, and hospitality. In a world where westerns often portrayed macho protagonists and violent gunfights, Hoss came to symbolize that power and tenderness could live side by side, and that bravery wasn't limited to brandishing a weapon. Hoss became a complex character because to Blocker's subtle performance. Hoss went from being a character to an iconic figure because viewers saw his frailty, inner struggles, and deep knowledge. The impact of Blocker's work extended well beyond the fictitious world of Bonanza. It made people rethink how television portrayed masculinity and strength. Hoss Cartwright became a prototypical figure because he proved that strong individuals might be subtle and understated, that a character may make an impression by demonstrating strength via empathy and complexity was laid out rather plainly. A nuanced change in the mechanics of television was introduced by Blocker's legacy. Future figures that showed strength via empathy instead of physical power might trace their inspiration to his work. The other actors lauded Blocker's hard work and professionalism, highlighting his inflated film image. Behind the scenes, however, he was kind, funny, and totally dedicated to his work. He may be no longer physically present, but his impact on television will last far into the future. Indeed, such personalities leave a lasting impression. Thank you for tuning in. Looking forward to our next meeting.